Welcome to my channel. This is an indication of some of the things that I cover on a regular basis in my videos. If you haven't already subscribed, please feel free to do so, and don't forget to click the little bell so that you'll get notified of future videos. Please feel free to share my videos on your social media, and I hope you enjoy the video which follows. Well, hello everyone. I know I have a video out there that isn't all that old. A couple of months or so, I guess, when I first started making pain de mie in the Pullman pan. I'll show you the pan in a bit when I'm ready to put the dough into it, but it's a pan with a cover on the top so that you get a square loaf if you haven't seen one before. I have wanted to try making either a multi-grain or a whole grain pain de mie sandwich bread. I can't describe the flavor. It is just so different than other white bread that I have made. Of course, it has butter in it, it has milk in it, and it's baked in that sort of strange way so that it can't rise as much as it wants to. The top on the pan prevents it from rising too high and keeps it nice and square. So I don't know if that has anything to do with it or not, but I love the flavor. I've just wanted to try it in whole wheat or multigrain. The problem being, during this pandemic thing, I can no longer find whole wheat bread flour or multigrain bread flour. My favorite brand name, you probably heard me mention before, is Robin Hood, and I was always able to get both of those products in Robin Hood. I have tried several large supermarkets in various areas of the province over the past 2 months, and nobody seems to have it. I assume that for some reason they just stopped producing it during the pandemic. So what I'm going to do, I was able to get just straight whole wheat flour, but if you made a loaf out of just it would be too strong, and it would just be a very heavy loaf. I don't think it would rise very well. And when you get whole wheat bread flour, what that means is that the whole wheat has been blended with a white bread flour, a strong white flour, and you get a nice loaf out of it. So what I'm going to attempt here is going to be 50% whole wheat flour and 50% white all-purpose flour. I think I'm just about ready to get started. I'll list the ingredients off as I put them in, I guess. I'm using metric, I'm weighing it, but in the instructions that'll be below the video, it gives you the cups measures as well. So I'm using 300 grams of whole wheat flour, 300 grams of all-purpose white flour, and it's stipulated non-iodized salt. It says kosher salt, which what that means is non-iodized salt. What I'm using is considered kosher. It's got a kosher label on it. It is sea salt. Basically, for kosher in salts, all it means is it's a salt. Nothing else has been added. So it's 2.5 teaspoons, or 2 1/4. 2.5 teaspoons of kosher salt. 2 1/4 teaspoons, or 1 sachet if you buy your yeast in those little sachets. Excuse me while I rummage around in the drawer. I meant to get a spatula out so that I could get that out of here without leaving half of it in the cup. So I've got 2.5 teaspoons, or it would be 1 sachet, in 1/4 of a cup of water just to dissolve it. Now, I can get that on the stand mixer here. Town. I'm going to try doing it back from behind it before, so I see how that will work. It's not going to work at all. I guess I got to come around here. I can't see what I'm doing. And the dough hook. Now this gets just blended on low for a few minutes just to blend the ingredients together. And then it will be gone up to a medium speed, and 2 minutes at a medium speed, and then you shut it down and let it rest for 3 or 4 minutes. So I'll put it up to that medium speed now, and I'll bring you back after it has finished that and has rested for 3 or 4. I was wondering why I had such a dry mix. There are 1 2/3 cups of whole milk that has been scalded and then allowed to cool to a tepid temperature. I had scalded it by putting it in the microwave and it was still in there. So we'll add that at this point. That ought to give us the dough that we were looking for. Couldn't figure out what on earth I had done wrong. A little liquid is required here. I'll let that go for a couple of minutes and then it'll rest for 3 and then we'll come back. Well, that's what it looks like after its first 2 minutes. Now it's resting for 3 and then it will go again for another couple of minutes and then it rests while you prepare the butter. And it's 6 tablespoons of cold butter, which I'm not so sure that I mentioned. Unsalted butter, because you've already added salt. If you were going to use salted butter, I would eliminate a teaspoon of the salt or so, I guess. But that is the process so far. I'll bring you back when I turn the machine back on. It's had its 3 minutes rest. It's an unusual method in making the bread in this sense. No other bread that I make do you knead it for a bit and stop and knead it for a bit and stop, and then you add the butter and it really gets kneaded quite a bit of time because the butter has to mix in. But perhaps that's all in what makes the unique flavor. I can't describe the flavor, I just love it. It makes the best toast and the best sandwich bread you could ever have. If you don't have a Pullman pan, I think you could still make the bread and just bake it in an ordinary pan. You'd get the same flavor and texture. And now we go for 2 more minutes on medium. Well, that is it. It has had its second beating, and now while you prepare the butter, it rests. Stipulates that the butter should be cold, and you use a rolling pin or whatever to flatten it. You don't want to make it so soft it says that it becomes oily. So mine's been out of the fridge for a few minutes, but it's still quite cold. And now it gets added to the bread mixture while it's going on medium. It says a ½ tablespoon at a time, so I'm not actually going to measure that, but we'll put a little bit in at a time until it's completely incorporated. Mixing in the butter phase is when it gets its kneading for sure. I didn't time it, but that probably took 10 minutes by the time I got all of the pieces of butter incorporated into it. Now all you do is flatten it out, fold it over on itself if possible 3 times. Like that, I guess. The first rising is 3 hours. So it goes into a bowl or a container of some sort that you can cover. This particular bowl has a nice red plastic cover. It suggests around 75 degrees. Well, a nice warm room anyway. So we'll bring you back in 3 hours time and see what it looks like at that point. Well, it has had its 3 hours to rise. I don't think I said when I put it away that the idea is for it to increase in bulk about 3 times. Well, this was even stuck to the top of the lid here, so nice big bubble there. I think it quite nicely did its 3 times, or something close to it anyway. And once again, you bring it out on a floured surface and basically do what we did the first time. For its second rising, it only has to go for 2 hours this time. You're still looking for something similar as far as increase goes, but I guess they figure that the yeast is developed enough that it should be able to do whatever it's going to do in 2 hours. And still after that it has to rise in the pan, so. Here we are ready to go for another 2 hours in a warm location. I'll bring you back at that time. Well, it has once again filled the bowl. Guess you can see that. Now it gets shaped, formed, and put into the Pullman pan, which I said I would show, and I haven't done. If you haven't seen one before, it's a non-stick pan, but it's not Teflon. It's a special substance that this particular company makes, I guess. But anyway, nothing sticks in it at all. It will go in there and rise for about 30 minutes, it says. But anyway, you don't want it to get any higher than an inch from the top, because once you put the lid on and put it in the oven, there'll be a certain amount of oven spring that will bring it up, hopefully to the top of the lid there. I'm not so sure that I do this right, but I do it the same way every time, and I seem to get a loaf out of it, I guess. You do this 3 or 4 times. Probably 3 times is enough. What you're doing is increasing the surface tension on the loaf. Put that back on the bottom, and I'll do it again. Karate chopping it, they say. There's some really big bubbles in it. Okay. This should be my final time, so I'll try to be a little more serious with it and not make quite a mess. Time will tell. It's already getting a lot denser, much more tension on the dough. Which was the idea, I guess. And the pan doesn't need to be oiled or anything. It is in there quite nicely. See that? Once again, we'll set it in a warm location for a half hour or so until it rises within an inch of the top there. In the meantime, we'll preheat the oven to 435 degrees Fahrenheit. That's 225 degrees Celsius. So I'll bring you back when it's ready to go in the oven. I'm also going to cover it with plastic wrap, so I thought I'd better show you that. It helps hold the heat in so that it will rise better. Well, it's had a half hour. I can get this plastic wrap off of it. Seems to be higher on this end than that end, but nothing much I can do about that at this point, I guess. The oven is preheated, 435 degrees, and this goes in the oven now for 40 minutes. So I'll show you the finished product when it comes out of the oven in 40 minutes time. Now it has had its 40 minutes in the oven. I'll get the cover off without burning myself here. filled up perfectly. If I must say so myself. Just the aroma of it cooking. I'm so used to sourdough cooking, I suppose, is why one reason why it smells so different to me. But just the aroma of it cooking is so different. This smells like it did when I made the white one, so I'm thinking that I'm going to have some good flavor here too, but can't cut it until it has completely cooled, and that'll take an hour or more. So I'll bring you back in an hour or more when I get to make a first slice off of it. But so far I'm going to declare a success, I think, with making a whole wheat pain de mie loaf. Let's hope it tastes as good as it smells. Well, it's been over an hour. It is still slightly warm, but I can't help it. I have to try it. So here goes nothing. I'll cut the end piece off. I know that'll be my favorite slice, but I'll cut another one. You can see the whole wheat, nice soft texture to it. Another thing that I like about the pain de mie and done in the Pullman loaf pan, you can cut it as thin as you want to cut it. It's still just a little bit warm, but I'll try a little butter on it. Butter in the bread itself anyway, but I have to try it with a little butter. It has that same unique flavor that the white one has. I can't put my finger on it. It's a really different tasting bread, and it is delicious. And I'm glad I'll be able to make it with whole wheat flour. Well, I hope you'll give this a try, either making the white version or the whole wheat version. The recipe is the same. I just put half whole wheat flour in for the whole wheat version. I'll just say thank you very much for watching, and see if I can't get this up on YouTube.